Hi, welcome back to Blue Mountain Bushcraft and Outdoors. Today we're out here in the woods out back behind my property to show you a couple of knives that I've had in my possession for quite a few months now. I've used them both pretty extensively and I've done quite a few modifications to them. So let's take a look and I'll show you what I've done and what they are. Last year, Schrade teamed up with a knife designer by the name of Brian Griffin. Last year, they came out with two knives of his design that were pretty compelling offerings. The first was the Schrade SCHF 42. This is one of Brian's designs. It's a recurve, little over a 5-inch blade, pretty close to 3/16 of an inch thick. And as they come from the factory, they have plastic handles. They also come in a leather sheath, and the sheath also is of excellent quality. But these knives are made out of 1095 and they're made in Schrade's Taiwan plant. So Schrade's costs to actually make these knives, manufacture them, is significantly increased over the knives that they have made in China. And the quality and the attention to detail on these knives really shows. So let me reposition the camera and we'll do some close-ups. Like I said, neither one of these are stock. And if you're familiar with those knives, you can see that immediately. So like I said, there are two knives in this series, and the first one I showed you is the SCHF 42, and that's got the recurve design, which is excellent. It's very efficient. It's not very hard to sharpen, but some people just did not like recurves, and they liked the knife overall, but they wanted something with a straight edge. So Schrade, being who they are, decided to listen to their customers, and they came out with this one. This is the Schrade SCHF 42D. Same basic knife, it just has a straight edge. Okay, now these knives are both 1095 high carbon steel, so they're not stainless, and if you don't take care of them, they are prone to rusting. And what Schrade does when they send them from the factory is they have a coating on them. And Schrade developed this new coating last year, again listening to their customers, that wasn't the spray-on truck bed liner that they had before, but this stuff. And I don't know what it is, if it's a paint or whatever, but it holds up decently well, and it's very smooth and does not really attract dirt and grime and grit and all that stuff, and it protects the knife pretty well. I decided to strip the coating off and blue it. So first thing I did when I got these blades was pull the scales off, obviously, put them in a pan with some stripper, paint stripper, I think it was Strippies if I remember correctly. Sprayed them down and let the chemical do its work, scraped off all the coating, which came off pretty easily. The steel underneath was pretty nice. There were no tooling marks, nothing that really needed to be buffed out. It wasn't a high polished finish or anything like that, but that's okay. You see, both of these knives have some jimping up top here. And when it has this factory coating on here, that does enough to break the edges of that jimping and make it so that it's not too terribly abrasive on the thumb. Well, as soon as you pull that coating off, these ridges and corners get really, really sharp. So before I went ahead and began refinishing these, I needed to address this jimping because it would just rip the flesh right off your fingers. It was pretty wicked. So all I did was I took a set of files and gently chamfered all of the edges, rounding them off so they're there. And when you push your finger into it, they still give you some nice traction, but they aren't cheese graters anymore. You can slide your finger over them, move your thumbs around, and it's not going to tear your thumbs up. So after stripping this off, that was the first thing that I addressed. Now, the second thing that I wanted to take care of was the spine. And if you have experience with these knives, you'll know that the spine right out of the box is pretty darn sharp. It strikes a ferro rod very well, and it really didn't need to be addressed. But me being me, I decided I wanted it just that little bit sharper. So I took it to a machinist friend of mine and we chucked them up and just sharpened that spine just ever so slightly. So now the spine on both of these is absolutely wicked sharp. But still pretty nice because even though there's this jimping here, I've rounded that off, took a lot of the aggression out of it, and when you've got your thumb there, you're not dealing with that harsh sharpness of the spine, but more the rounded edges of that jimping. And that's actually worked out extremely well. All right, so the last item that I wanted to address with these knives was the finish. Now, obviously, after stripping these and doing the other modifications, rounding off the jimping, sharpening up the spine, I certainly could have left these alone, and with a little bit of proper care, these would have taken on a very nice patina, and they'd have been just fine. Probably would have required a little extra care, but they'd have been fine, and probably had a pretty neat look. But I wanted to go a different route, so I decided to go the gun blue route. Finishes have held up well. This one in particular has been used very heavily, and there's some minor scratching. There's a little bit of wear going on here, although that's a little shiny, but it's not down to bare metal by any stretch of the imagination. There's still finish left in there. But the nice thing with the cold bluing is that it's very easy to touch up. So if it gets to the point where this really needs to be redone, I will clean it, degrease it, hit it with some more solution, and be ready to go. So the finish has worked out pretty well. It's given these knives, I think, a pretty good look. Obviously your mileage will vary, but for me, this was a nice option, and I'm glad that I did it. Now, remember at the beginning of the video I said that these came with plastic handles. The 42 comes with black, and the 42D comes with this kind of brownish tan color. And they're well made, they're comfortable, but they do get kind of slick. And particularly with the 42D, I don't know, I just wasn't really fond of the coloring. So I needed new scales. So, as you can see, these are both sporting canvas micarta scales. And I got both sets of these scales from a company by the name of LMF Knives. And LMF Knives is run by a gentleman by the name of Joe Snarsky. And Joe is down in South Carolina. I'll give you a look at his business card here. And he does micarta scales for Becker and Essie, as well as all of these Schrade knives. And he's probably doing a whole bunch more different designs by now. I haven't talked to him for a little while. But Joe's manufacturing techniques are fantastic. I don't know how he does it, but his turnaround time is very quick. He has somehow managed to mimic the contour of the factory scales, which, like I said, is a really good thing. And he has delivered a set of scales which are befitting to these knives. They feel excellent in the hand. They're canvas micarta, so as they get wet, they get grippier. And on both of these, he included bow drill divots. Now the last step in customizing these blades that I wanted to address was the sheath. This is the sheath that comes with the SCH F42D. It's a brown leather and it's actually a pretty nice quality. The 42 comes with an exact same sheath except that it's all black. Okay, so despite the fact that these knives come with a pretty decent quality leather sheath, I wanted something different. I wanted Kydex, and my go-to Kydex guy is Gary Lawson at C2G Fab. I've shown you a bunch of his work in the past, and honestly guys, his stuff just continues to get better and better and better. It's really fantastic. So what I wanted was a simple cross draw Kydex sheath that would mount along the front of your belt and maintain a pretty low profile, and that's exactly what he designed with his sheath. You can see it's a very simple taco design. There's not a lot of bells and whistles on it, just a nice place for a light my fire ferro rod, and he has got that integrated along the front face of the sheath, so it's not really bulking up the sheath at all, which I love. Flip this thing over. Got a couple of nice drain holes here. Got Gary's logo. And this rubber fiber, I don't even know what the heck this thing is. It feels like rubber, but it's got some sort of fiber material in it. Whatever it is, it's tough as hell. And he has that affixed on there with a pull the dot system. So the only way that snap is coming off is if you reach up underneath that dot and pull it up. It's very secure. I've worn this all over the place, and it's never even given a hint of coming off. So this sheath is designed to be carried across your front, mounted horizontally on your belt. That's what I wanted. And he makes variations of this sheath with belt loops and danglers and whatnot, but this was the version that I was interested in getting. I really like carrying this knife that way. It keeps it low profile and out of the way, and I'll show you some pictures of that in a minute. But it's just a very simple, clean design. Great thumb ramp there for removing the knife. It's lightweight, again, low profile, simple, and the attention to detail is just phenomenal, which is what I've come to expect from Gary's work. Okay, one of the things that I really like about this design is how easy it is to take on, or take off and put on. So when you go to put this on, you don't have to undo your belt, which is great. Simply undo the snap, feed that up through your belt, come back over, snap it, and you're done. This sucker's on here and it's not going anywhere because of this pull the dot snap. Again, unless you come up from underneath it and pull it, it's not coming off. But I've worn this thing all over the place and I've never had it come undone unless there was me wanting it to come off. So again, it's very secure, it's a very low profile, it's easy to take on and off, and extremely easy to get the knife in and out. Highly, highly, highly recommend Gary's work. Can't say enough good things about it. I think the neat thing about these blades is just how much you can customize them. Again, nothing wrong with the coating that comes on them, but I didn't want that coating. So I stripped it and I blued it. As delivered out of the box, the jimping wasn't terrible because that coating covered up some of the sharp edges. But after taking the coating off, I was able to get in there and shape these jimping sections to something that I enjoyed. Now they give grip and they don't tear your thumb up, which is fantastic. I was able to sharpen the spine up even more than it already was sharpened, and It's just wicked now. These custom grips from LMF Knives are fantastic. They maintain the excellent original feel of the knife while giving better overall feel, a little bit more heft to the knife, and definitely much better wet performance. So, and lastly, the sheath. You know, the sky's the limit. There's a ton of sheath makers out there who will make you a sheath for these knives. I choose Gary at C2G Fab because I like Gary. He's a good guy. I've been dealing with him for years, and he is continuously innovating, coming up with new stuff, and he just makes products that I really, really like, and he makes them at an affordable price. I don't think he charges enough for his work. I think if you were to factor in the cost of the knife off of Amazon, which is, I don't know, $45, $50, I don't remember how much the scales were. I think, and don't quote me or don't yell at me if I'm wrong, contact Joe. I think the scales were $35, and the sheath, I think the sheath was around $40 or $50. Again, you got to contact these guys on the prices because I just don't remember. But for what, under $100 or $120, you've got full-on, I think, custom knife performance. So with what you've got here with this package, I think it's well worth it. All right, guys, if you like this video, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. It helps me out with YouTube, and I really appreciate it. And, you know, leave some comments down below. Talk about if you guys have experience with these blades, if you have experience with LMF, if you have experience with C2G Fab, if you have questions, anything like that, hit me up down there. We'll talk about it. I try and get back to each and every one of you. All right, guys, I appreciate you taking the time to be with me today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.